Welcome to my capstone presentation. My name is Alyssa Bishop and I teach 6th grade math. I am a part of the Instructional Technology Master's Program here at Kennesaw State University. My capstone project is entitled Online Distance Learning Through Canvas, a guide for math teachers. The problem that prompted the need for this capstone project is that many of our math teachers doubted that math could be taught and learned in an online environment. They lacked the knowledge in how to implement blended learning in a math class. They lacked the confidence in their ability to implement blended learning. And they also lacked a knowledge about the instructional tools within Canvas that could be used to support blended learning methods. I had originally planned for my project to be completed from January of 2019 to May of 2019. However, once the capstone project began, I quickly realized that this current timeline would not be suitable for the amount of instruction that I wanted to cover. Therefore, I extended the timeline so that the project would finish in December of 2019. The capstone project began with an initial meeting with the 6th grade math teachers to explain the capstone project and administer the needs assessment. From this needs assessment, I was able to design and plan for the professional development sessions. There were 7 sessions meant to cover 7 different instructional tools found in Canvas. These professional development sessions took place in February, March, May, August, and September. April was not used due to state testing, and the summer months were not used due to the teachers' previously made plans. Each of the 7 professional development sessions covered a different instructional tool. These tools were modules, announcements, discussions, Nearpod, collaboration, class notebook, and conferences. At the end of these 7 sessions, I also set aside 2 additional sessions to be used for individual or small group coaching. During each session, I used the gradual release method. I began each session by showing the teachers an example of how each instructional tool could be used in a math class. I then modeled how to use each instructional tool and then how to create an assignment using that tool. Lastly, I gave the teachers time to practice using the tool and creating an assignment with it in order to increase their skills. During this time, the teachers also asked any clarifying questions they had. In order to formatively assess the teacher's knowledge and skills, each teacher was tasked with creating and implementing an assignment using the designated instructional tool. Here are some examples of the assignments that the teachers created. One teacher wanted to review subtracting fractions, so she created a module about it. Another teacher created a discussion post on measures of central tendency, and a third teacher used an announcement to distribute the review games so that the students could practice and study for their test. Once all 9 professional development sessions were completed, it was time to begin the teacher's final assessment. The teachers would collaborate with each other and develop blended learning units for future development. From October to December, the teachers worked on designing 3 blended learning unit plans. This is an example of one of the unit plans that the teachers developed for their final assessment. As you can see, several things were taken into consideration when developing this unit, such as standards, the learner characteristics of the school, and even the prerequisite skills needed to complete the unit. As we get into the first module, which is the first lesson, you'll see that I have some things highlighted. One of the criteria for completing this unit plan was to include all 7 of the instructional tools that were discussed. So as I went through each of the unit plans, I highlighted each of these instructional tools to ensure that they were being incorporated. Here you can see that so far they've incorporated modules, announcements, and even the class OneNote. When we get further into the module plan, something that the teachers had to include and think about were how they would assess the students' work in order to achieve mastery of the module objectives, what kind of learning activities would they partake in, and also what were the plans for differentiation for both advanced students and struggling students. When we get into the Module 2 lesson, you'll see a different type of highlighting. Another criteria for the unit plan was to ensure that the blended learning unit was being developed appropriately for 6th graders, that it wasn't too hard and it wasn't too easy. And this activity that I've highlighted red, I felt was too hard for the students. It says that they're going to be taking notes in the class OneNote, and that would be done from a face-to-face lesson by the teacher. It doesn't mention that guided notes would be provided. It doesn't mention that the teacher would model how to take notes in OneNote prior to the activity. And if a student has never taken notes in OneNote before on their own, that could be very difficult for them to do. So the teachers did lose some points on this unit plan for that reason. Once the unit plans were complete, I evaluated them on their user-friendliness, differentiation techniques, content-related topics, and the use of all 7 instructional tools. After the project was complete, the teachers were given a program evaluation survey. The survey was intended to capture the teacher's sentiments, knowledge, and skills of blended learning after the Capstone project. I analyzed these results and discovered that the teacher's knowledge and skills had grown since the beginning of the project. Towards the end of January, I asked the teachers to meet with me once more to discuss the final results of their projects and the program evaluation survey. During this time, the teachers and I discussed potential follow-up measures to ensure that their knowledge and skills of blended learning continued to grow. I lastly summarized my experience, results, and alterations in the Capstone B report to hopefully share with administration one day. There were several evaluation methods used during this project. The first evaluation method administered was the needs assessment that would help me identify the teacher's current knowledge, skills, and sentiments towards blended learning and Canvas. After the instruction of each Canvas tool, I had informal conversations with the teachers to determine if they understood the content, believed the tool would be helpful in their class, and had the skills to use the instructional tool in the future. At the end of each professional development session, the teachers were asked to create and implement an assignment using the designated instructional tool. These learning activities were evaluated with a shortened version of the final project rubric. When the teachers returned to the next session, they had some time to work through each other's learning activity and provide their colleagues with feedback. I observed and listened to their comments, which informed me how much information was retained from the instruction based on the depth and breadth of the comments given. The major evaluation method used was the teacher's final assessment to develop blended learning unit plans. The teacher's work was assessed using the final project rubric. Lastly, the teachers took a program evaluation survey to determine the overall effectiveness of the Capstone project. When looking at the needs assessment results, I focused on these 4 questions as they directly impacted the project objectives. As you can see, 60% of the teachers stated that they had some experience teaching in a blended learning environment, but when asked about how much experience, they stated that it was either very little or none at all. When looking further into the needs assessment, I noticed that only 3 of the instructional tools were being used consistently in the teachers' classrooms, and their confidence in implementing blended learning was between a 3 and a 4 on a scale of 5. When analyzing the program evaluation results, we see that 75% of the teachers now classify themselves as pros when using blended learning, whereas no one considered themselves a pro prior to the Capstone experience. We also see that the teachers' confidences improved from a 3 or 4 to now being a 4 or 5. And the amount of tools used in Canvas that the teachers know how to use and the tools that they consistently use in their classrooms has also increased. These are 2 examples of the final project rubrics used to evaluate the first and the third unit plan that the teachers created. The teachers received a grade of 80 on the first unit plan because they did not include all 7 of the instructional tools, and the blended learning unit plan had some difficult elements that made it not user-friendly for 6th grade students. The second example shown is the teacher's third unit plan, where they received a grade of 90. Even though the third unit plan also had some issues with user-friendliness, the difference between the 2 plans was that the third unit included all 7 instructional tools, whereas the first only included 6. From this, we can see that the teacher's knowledge and skills in developing a blended learning unit plan did increase from the first plan they created to the last plan. Overall, I feel the implementation of the Capstone experience was successful. All 7 of the instructional tools were covered during the professional development meetings, and a few of the teachers also came in during the small group coaching sessions to receive extra practice and support with the Canvas instructional tools. According to the program evaluation survey results and the teacher's final assessment, 3 of the 4 project objectives were met. The 4 project objectives were to increase the use of blended learning through Canvas. This objective was not met. The second objective was to coach 5 math teachers on how to use the tools in Canvas to create blended learning assignments, and this objective was met. The third was to have the teachers create a blended learning unit. This objective was met. And the fourth objective was to increase the teachers' confidence in their ability to implement blended learning, and this objective was also met. The reason the first objective was not met was because not all of the teachers increased their use of blended learning by at least 25%. 2 of the teachers didn't meet this goal. At the beginning of this project, 40% of the teachers stated that they didn't use Canvas at all for blended learning, and 60% of the teachers only used Canvas for basic delivery of instruction. At the end of the experience, however, 25% of the teachers used Canvas for true blended learning, and 50% of the teachers used Canvas for exploratory activities. Therefore, even though not all 5 teachers increased their use of blended learning by at least 25%, there was great success with the Capstone project. As mentioned before, the program evaluation showed that the confidence levels of the teachers in being able to implement blended learning increased from a level 3 and 4 to a level 4 and 5. The number of instructional tools that the teachers know how to use since the experience ended also increased from only knowing 3 of the tools to now knowing how to use all of the tools. When looking more closely at each individual tool, we saw that 100% of the teachers feel more confident in using 4 of the instructional tools, and 80% of the teachers feel more confident in using the other 3. This is an average confidence level of 91%. The teacher's final assessment was to develop blended learning unit plans. Each of these 3 units achieved mastery according to the final project rubric, as the grades on these unit plans were 80%, 90%, and a 90% again. This experience was one of the most impactful and challenging learning experiences I've endured. There were several barriers that I faced, the main one being time. I would say that I overestimated how much I could teach within a given time frame, and I underestimated how much our individual teaching schedules would hinder our ability to meet. Another barrier I encountered was our professional learning community time. I originally thought that I would be able to meet with the teachers once every week during this time, but I soon learned that our other responsibilities would make this difficult. I tried to keep the meetings no longer than 2 weeks apart, but even this became challenging the further into the semester we got and the closer we became to milestone state testing. Further implementation of the Capstone could dive into the newer instructional tools like Flipgrid or Teams meetings that were recently added. To improve the implementation of this professional development extension, the instructor should have preset dates for professional development and get them on the school calendar as soon as possible. This could cut back on the need to constantly reschedule due to other meetings. The instructor should also collaborate with another colleague, like the instructional lead specialist, to determine if the amount of professional development is achievable within the given time frame. Overall, I feel the project was successful as the 6th grade math teachers in my school are using Canvas more often for blended learning, which does fill the original need at the beginning of this experience. Thank you for watching.